Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Big stories when the #1 team in the country has a historic win over a top 5 team like UConn did. And of course, it may be an even bigger story when the #2 team in the country takes a loss to a school which just fired its coach. But at the same time, let's go ahead and move on to some other stuff. And what I'll say is this, listen, I don't think you can sit here and say that anything is a bigger surprise than UConn winning by 28 or Purdue, again, losing to a team which just fired its coach. But there was one result that is worth discussing because I just got it completely wrong when we previewed the game on Friday. That game, of course, is the game that took place, top 25 matchup in beautiful Auburn, Alabama, where the Auburn Tigers hosted the Kentucky Wildcats. I don't even know what the final point spread was. I think Auburn was probably close to a double-digit favorite when this game started. And if you had asked me to place a bet, I probably would have taken Auburn. They were coming off a 40-point home win against South Carolina. On top of that, it's worth noting that Kentucky, listen, they had a great midweek win over Ole Miss, but it was Ole Miss. How big of a deal is it? I don't really know, whatever. They had lost 3 of 4 before that, and I just thought bluntly this was a bad matchup for Kentucky. They are a great offensive team, but to this point had not been great defensively. They struggled on the glass last week against Gonzaga, and I just didn't think against a tough physical team in the Auburn Tigers that they stood much of a chance in one of the toughest environments in college hoops. Well, yeah, your boy Torres was dead wrong, as in what I deem to be a shocker of all shockers. Kentucky goes to Auburn, dominates from start to finish, final score 70-59. The Kentucky Wildcats get the win, and I got to take the L. I gave them no chance. A lot of you felt the need to tweet me during this game, and I don't blame you because I came on here definitively confident that Auburn was going to win this game, and instead it was Kentucky which dominated from start to finish. Biggest win of the year for Kentucky, no doubt. They do have a pretty good resume, by the way. Remember, they beat North Carolina on a neutral, and of course, this Auburn win is huge as well. And so I think the question becomes, and a lot of people are asking, with this win, dominant win at Auburn, has this Kentucky season turned, and can they still reach those lofty goals that everybody had for them in the early part of the season, November, December, even January, when I was saying I thought they were one of the 3 best teams in the country, along with UConn and Carolina? Well, I'm not totally sure just yet that we should throw a parade and start booking tickets to Phoenix for the Final Four. But this was a major, major, major step in the right direction, and I do think the things that needed to be fixed for Kentucky, at least over the last 2 games, absolutely have been. Now, one, it's worth noting, the defense has just been better, okay? And what stands out to me is I think there was always this thought with Kentucky. Their offense is truly, truly, truly elite. And if the thought process was if they could just be a little tiny bit better on defense, then it would open up doors for everything. And they certainly were a little bit better. They were a lot bit better. And that's what really, more than anything, stands out to me about this game. I know Kentucky scored 70 points, but it was not the offense that won this game. It was the defense almost in totality which won this game. Because think about this. Kentucky is coming into this game. They were and still are one of the highest scoring teams in college basketball. Okay. Putting up, 85, 86, 87 points per game. They scored 70 in this game. On top of that, this is a team that on the season, even after this game, is shooting over 40% from 3, just an insane statistic. Well, in this game against Auburn, they finished shooting, how about this, from beyond the 3-point arc? They finished shooting 4 of 13. Rob Dillingham, who has been a star of stars, put up 30 the other day against Tennessee, and he has had so many big games, only had 11 points. Reed Sheppard has been a star offensively, only had 4 points, although he did have 3 assists, 5 steals, and 5 boards. But I just bring it up because I think the thought process was the offense was always going to be there, but the defense just needed to be incrementally better. Well, the defense was significantly better because the offense was much worse than it's been. That's not a knock on the offense. That is a credit to the defense. This was a defensive win. beyond that, and I think this is really important as to the success of Kentucky in the short term and the long term. I give John Calipari credit. He finally shortened the bench. I think it was the Gonzaga game that we talked about this, where I just said, look, you're playing 9, 10. I think they played 10 guys like before the under 12 timeout or something crazy like that. And that was with Trey Mitchell hurt, okay? And I just said, look, it's February. You got to figure out who your guys are. Well, if you watch this game, Cal went with the starting lineup. It worked. Everybody was confident. And how about this? They had 7 guys in total play more than 4 minutes in this game. Outside of the starting 5 plus Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham off the bench, nobody played more than 4 minutes. Aaron Bradshaw, 3 minutes. Big Z, 1 minute. I'm not rooting against those guys. I wish there was a way to play everybody and get them 20 minutes and whatever. But it was clear he tightened the rotation. They were playing fast. They beat Auburn down the court. They were getting buckets, and it worked. And it worked defensively for the third and what I think to be the biggest takeaway from this game. Third and biggest takeaway was it wasn't just the defense. It wasn't even anything that can be quantified on the stat sheet. It was that they were the tougher against one of the toughest teams in college basketball, one of the toughest environments in college basketball. Kentucky was the tougher team. And when you go back and look at those losses, I think toughness is the name of the game. Go back to the Gonzaga game. Kentucky gave up 18 offensive rebounds. Remember, they gave up 66 points to Gonzaga's 4 big guys. Now, not all of them were paint points, but most of them were in the paint. And again, there was like a 6-7 minute stretch where it was just Gonzaga kept dumping the ball into the post. Game over, bucket, Gonzaga, okay? And so I just bring it up because it was all of those things. It was the defense carrying them for maybe the first time all season. It was the fact that Cal smartly tightened that rotation, and more importantly, it was the toughness. I don't know if you can quantify it, but when Auburn came in as one of the best rebounding teams in the SEC and you out-rebounded them as a team that's middle of the pack to bottom third of college basketball in rebounding, that is a successful afternoon, and that's how it leads to wins. Now the big question becomes, did Kentucky turn some sort of corner, and is this a team that can reach all that potential that we had for them in November and December? First off, let me say this. I get that covering Kentucky is like covering the New York Yankees or the LA Lakers, the Dallas Cowboys. Every single game, every single thing is going to be magnified. And John Calipari talks about that all the time. I can't hijack Kentucky. What I will say, and I've thought this for a while, it wasn't just because they beat Auburn. I do think like they lost 3 in a row at home, and that will never not be on the 23-24 Kentucky team's resume. Well, that is never something that gets erased from the history books, okay? But at the same time, if you go back and look, was it ever really as bad as we were all making it, including me? I'm taking the L on this one, but including me in the moment. Remember, this was a team against Florida. They were up 3 with 7-8 seconds to go. Calipari doesn't foul. They hit a 3, go to overtime. Game's over at that point. But I had a Kentucky fan point out, they just foul. That was a game that they were in complete control of the whole game, and you didn't even know how they lost. Then they got Tennessee coming into town. That was a butt kicking of epic proportions. And then even the Gonzaga game. They had the ball with a chance to tie it with 15, 20 seconds to go? And that was in a game where they were down one of their key big guys, Trey Mitchell. And so I just keep bringing this up because it was probably never as bad as we thought it was. But at the same time, the question becomes, what does it mean for the rest of the season? Well, if we get the performance that we got on Saturday at Auburn, this Kentucky team is capable of doing anything, at least in the regular season and deep, deep, deep into March. But I don't want to spend the next few minutes saying everything's fixed, everything's figured out, this team's incredible, they're going to beat everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is when you look at the schedule, if you can win at Auburn, there's no reason to think that you can't win just about any game left on the schedule. Now, the final game of the season is at Tennessee. That one ain't going to be easy. But in terms of the rest of the season, at LSU this week, you have to win that game. If you are a real team, you don't take your foot off the gas. You don't stop. You go to LSU and beat them up. They're a good team. They're not terrible, but that is not a team you should lose to. Then next week, you have Alabama at home. And that to me is the key game. Because you haven't been playing well at home, which is just weird to even think about. But you win that game. You beat LSU, you beat Alabama. That would be Alabama's 4th SEC loss. And on top of that, Tennessee already has 4 SEC losses as well. Kentucky has 5. That's significant because if you are Kentucky, let me make sure I have those stats right, by the way. All right, so what did I just say here? Okay, so Kentucky has 4 SEC losses, excuse me. Alabama has 2, Tennessee has 3. So I bring it up because you beat Alabama. Now everybody has at least 3 losses in the loss column. You're only a game back. You're certainly in contention to at least finish in the top 4 in the SEC, get the double bye in Nashville, which is so important. And then beyond that, and I think this is important as well, you're still in position to potentially win the SEC. Do I think it's going to happen? It would take work. And I'll say this bluntly. It would almost certainly take beating Tennessee at Tennessee. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse. But what I am saying is if you get that effort, if you get that level of toughness, of physicality, of defensive effort, you can play with and beat anybody, man. Remember, again, what did I say? This is a team that beat Carolina on a neutral court. You just went to Auburn and won. By the way, you've beaten good NCAA tournament caliber teams, at various points in the season as well. Crushed Ole Miss, crushed Mississippi State. Those are like the type of teams that if you're a 6 seed in the tournament, those are the type of team that you will be facing in the first round, and you've destroyed them. But now it's, can you get it going consistently? Can you get this defensive effort consistently? Because if you can, as Michael Jordan once said, the ceiling is the roof. Now, I think what he meant to say was there is no ceiling, but as Michael Jordan said, the ceiling is the roof, but you have to do it. So credit to Kentucky. I could go on and on. They play at LSU Wednesday. Again, just a must win. Just Kentucky for once, just go out and do what you're supposed to do. Just smack them around. You'll be probably a 4 or 5 point road favorite. I know everybody's losing on the road this year, including Purdue on Sunday, but just go out and do what you got to do. Smack them, get some hype, get some momentum going into that Alabama game. Then I'll tell you what, I think you can have success against the Tide when they come to town next Saturday.